The stars above Earth disappeared one by one as massive ships moved into position. Each vessel was the size of a small city, dark metal gleaming under the light of distant suns. There were so many ships that they blocked out whole sections of the night sky. People on Earth looked up and saw only the hulls of alien warships where stars used to shine. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms that moved with practiced grace as he worked the control panels. His large black eyes showed no emotion as he watched the planet below. Earth looked small and weak from up here, just a blue and green ball floating in space. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his second-in-command, Captain Velinux. She was younger than Kethver, but had served in many conquests. Her voice carried the cold confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Kethver nodded slowly. This was how it always went. The Zephyrian Empire would arrive at a new world with overwhelming force. The natives would see the 1,000 ships in their sky and know they had no choice but to surrender. Some worlds tried to fight at first, but they always gave up when they saw how hopeless it was. "Begin broadcasting the surrender terms," Kethver ordered. The message went out on every frequency in every language Earth used. Massive screens appeared in the sky above every major city, showing Kethver's face as he spoke. His words were translated instantly into hundreds of human languages. "People of Earth," he began, his voice carrying across the planet, "I am Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world now belongs to us. We have conquered 437 worlds before yours. We know your history, we know your wars, we know your weaknesses." In New York, people stopped in the streets to stare up at the screen. In Tokyo, workers abandoned their offices to watch from windows. In London, families gathered around their televisions. All across Earth, humans listened to the aliens' words. "You are a young species," Kethver continued. "You fight among yourselves over small pieces of land and simple resources. You have barely left your own planet. You cannot stand against us. We offer you one chance to avoid complete destruction." The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in. He had given this same speech dozens of times before. It always worked the same way. First came shock, then fear, then desperate attempts to negotiate, and finally surrender. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons, abandon all military bases, prepare to accept Zephyrian rule. Do this, and your people will be allowed to live as subjects of our empire. Refuse, and we will destroy every city, every town, every settlement on your planet. Nothing will remain but ash and memory." Captain Velinux watched the readings from Earth's surface. "Their communication networks are going crazy," she reported. "Panic in most major population centers. Their military forces are mobilizing, but they look confused and disorganized." This was normal too. Every species panicked when they first saw Zephyrian ships. Their leaders would argue and fight about what to do. Some would want to surrender immediately. Others would talk about fighting back, not understanding how impossible that was. In the end, they always chose to live rather than die pointlessly. "Any response from their leaders yet?" Kethver asked. "They're still arguing among themselves," Velinux replied. "Intelligence reports show meetings happening in every major nation. Their military commanders are being called to emergency sessions. It's exactly what we expected." Kethver had studied human history before coming here. Humans were violent and aggressive, but only against each other. They fought wars over religion, over territory, over resources that meant nothing to advanced civilizations. They built weapons designed to kill other humans, not to fight enemies from space. Their largest ships were barely big enough to carry a few hundred people. Nothing compared to Zephyrian dreadnoughts that held 50,000 crew members. The Zephyrians had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. They had perfected the art of making other species submit without long, costly battles. Show up with enough force to make resistance seem hopeless. Give them time to think about it. Let fear do most of the work. Most species surrendered within the first day. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's coming from multiple locations at once. Put it through, Kethfer ordered. The screen showed not one person, but dozens. Men and women in military uniforms, others in civilian clothes. They were scattered across Earth, but somehow broadcasting together. The central figure was an older human woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She wore the uniform of some Earth military organization. I am General Sarah Chun, speaking for the Emergency Defense Council of Earth, the woman said. Her voice was calm and steady. We have received your ultimatum, Admiral Kethfer, and what is your response? Kethfer asked. He expected to hear pleas for mercy, requests for more time, or desperate offers to negotiate. General Chun looked directly at the camera. Behind her, all the other humans on the transmission wore the same expression. There was no fear in their eyes, no panic. Instead, Kethfer saw something he had not expected and did not understand. He saw anger. Our response is simple, General Chun said. Come and take it. The transmission ended. Kethfer stared at the blank screen. Captain Velinux looked confused. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded like that. Did they understand the message? Velinux asked. Maybe their translation systems are broken? Run it again, Kethfer ordered. Make sure they understand what we're offering them. The message was broadcast again, this time with enhanced translation protocols. The Zephyrians sent detailed information about their military capabilities, showing footage of other conquered worlds. They explained exactly what would happen if Earth refused to surrender. The response came back in less than an hour. This time it was not from General Chun, but from hundreds of different humans all across Earth, government leaders, military officers, scientists, teachers, factory workers, farmers. They all said the same thing in their own languages, but the translation was identical every time. Come and take it. Captain Velinux checked the readings again. Admiral, their population is not fleeing to shelters. Their military units are not surrendering. Instead, they appear to be preparing for battle. This made no sense to Kethfer. He called up the intelligence reports on human military capability. Their largest warships were tiny. Their most powerful weapons could barely damage a Zephyrian scout ship. They had no shields, no energy weapons, no experience fighting in space. A single Zephyrian dreadnought could destroy their entire military by itself. Perhaps they do not understand the odds, Kethfer said finally. Some species need to see our power before they accept reality. Destroy one of their military bases from orbit. Show them what we can do. Which target, Admiral? Kethfer studied the tactical display. Earth had hundreds of military installations. Pick one of their larger ones. Make it visible from their major population centers. Let them see what happens to those who resist the Empire. The order went out to the fleet. Weapons charged with enough power to level a mountain. Targeting systems locked onto a large naval base on one of Earth's coastlines, but before the Zephyrians could fire, something impossible happened. Ships began launching from Earth. Not just a few ships, but thousands of them. They came from every continent, rising from hidden bases and launching facilities the Zephyrians had not detected. Most were small, barely big enough for a single crew member. Others were larger, but clearly not military vessels. They looked like cargo ships, mining vessels, even civilian transports that had been hastily modified. What are they doing? Captain Velinux whispered. The human ships did not retreat or hide. Instead, they flew directly toward the Zephyrian fleet. There were so many of them that they looked like a swarm of insects rising from Earth's surface. Kethfer watched in disbelief. Every military doctrine said this was impossible. No species attacked when they were so completely outmatched. It was suicide. It was madness. It was something the Zephyrian Empire had never seen before. Admiral, the communications officer reported, we're receiving another transmission from Earth. Put it through. General Chun appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Kethfer could see displays showing the human ships climbing toward space. The general's expression had not changed. She still looked angry, but now there was something else in her eyes, determination. You wanted to know if we understood your message, General Chun said. We did. You threatened to destroy our world if we didn't surrender. You told us we have no choice but to kneel before your empire. She leaned forward, and her voice grew quiet but deadly serious. You were wrong about one thing, Admiral. We always have a choice. And we choose to fight. The transmission ended just as the first human ships reached the edge of Earth's atmosphere, accelerating toward the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Kethver realized that this conquest was not going to be like the others. The first wave of human ships reached the Zephyrian fleet 30 minutes after launch. Admiral Kethver expected them to break apart under his weapons fire like paper in a storm. Instead, something strange happened. The human ships scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that made no sense. Some flew straight at the largest Zephyrian vessels. Others weaved between the warships like they were dancing. A few seemed to disappear completely, only to reappear behind the fleet. Fire on them, Kethver ordered. The Zephyrian weapon systems activated. Bright beams of energy shot out from hundreds of ships, lighting up space like deadly fireworks. The targeting computers locked onto the human vessels and fired automatically. Most of the shots missed. How are they moving like that? Captain Valinux asked, staring at her displays. Their ships should not be able to change direction so quickly. The human vessels moved like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. They spun and rolled and dove through space as if they were flying through an atmosphere instead of the vacuum of space. When energy beams came toward them, they somehow managed to dodge at the last second. Then the first human ship reached a Zephyrian destroyer. The small human craft was maybe 1/10 the size of the destroyer. It looked like a mining ship that someone had strapped rocket engines to. Any sane pilot would have fired their weapons and tried to escape. Instead, the human ship rammed directly into the destroyer's hull. The explosion lit up space for miles. Around, both ships were destroyed instantly. Captain Valinux stared at the readings in shock. Did they just kill themselves to destroy one of our ships? Before anyone could answer, it happened again. And again. Human ships were deliberately crashing into Zephyrian vessels, trading their lives for the chance to damage the fleet. Some of the human ships were so small they barely scratched the Zephyrian hulls when they hit. Others carried explosives that tore massive holes in the warships. This is insane, Valinux whispered. No species fights like this. Admiral Kethver watched his fleet's status reports. In the first hour of fighting, he had lost 12 ships. The humans had lost hundreds. But they kept coming. More ships launched from Earth every few minutes, and they all fought with the same desperate courage. Begin orbital bombardment, Kethver commanded. Target their major cities. Force them to recall their ships to defend their population centers. The massive guns of the Zephyrian dreadnoughts turned toward Earth. Energy beams powerful enough to level mountains fired down at the planet's surface. The first target was New York City. The beams struck the city and carved deep craters in the ground. Buildings collapsed and fires spread across entire blocks. Millions of humans should have died in those first few seconds, but something was wrong with the readings. Captain, the sensor officer reported, the city appears to have been mostly evacuated. We're detecting very few life signs in the target area. That's impossible, Valinux said. We gave them only 72 hours. They could not have moved 8 million people in that time. More bombardment beams fired at other cities around Earth: London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. Each time, the Zephyrians found the same thing. The cities were nearly empty. Somehow, the humans had evacuated their entire population in less than 3 days. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we're receiving another transmission. From the planet, General Chun appeared on the screen again. She was not in the same location as before. Behind her, Kethver could see what looked like an underground bunker with dozens of people working at computer terminals. Did you think we would just stand there and let you kill us? She asked. We've been preparing for this moment since your first ship appeared in our sky. Every major city has been evacuated. Our people are safe in shelters deep underground. Kethver felt a cold anger building in his chest. You are only delaying the inevitable. We will find your hiding places and destroy them. You're welcome to try, General Chun replied. But while you're wasting time shooting at empty buildings, more of our ships are launching, and they're bringing friends. The transmission ended, and Kethver immediately checked the sensor readings. What he saw made his blood freeze. The second wave of human ships was approaching. This wave was different from the first. These ships were larger, and there were fewer of them. But they moved with the same impossible agility as the smaller craft. "Those are cargo haulers," Captain Vilinux said, studying the ship designs. "And that one looks like a passenger liner." "What are they doing?" The answer came when the first converted cargo ship reached the Zephyrian fleet. Its hull split open and dozens of smaller ships poured out like insects from a nest. Each small ship immediately attacked the nearest Zephyrian vessel. The passenger liner did something even more shocking. It flew directly at a Zephyrian cruiser. But instead of ramming it, the liner opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Bright blue energy beams shot out from hastily installed gun ports along the ship's hull. "How do they have energy weapons?" Vilinux demanded. "Our intelligence report said they only had primitive projectile weapons." "They're learning," Kethver realized with growing horror. "They're copying our technology." It was true. Somehow, in just a few hours of fighting, the humans had managed to reverse engineer Zephyrian weapons and install them on their own ships. The weapons were crude and inefficient, but they worked well enough to damage Zephyrian hulls. The battle continued. For hours, wave after wave of human ships launched from Earth, each group using different tactics and different weapons. Some carried missiles that split apart into dozens of smaller warheads. Others used mining lasers that had been modified into crude but effective weapons. A few human ships seemed to be nothing but flying bombs, designed only to get close enough to a Zephyrian vessel to explode. "Admiral," the damage control officer reported, "we've lost 43 ships. Several more are badly damaged and requesting permission to withdraw." Kethver could not believe what he was hearing. The mighty Zephyrian fleet was being hurt by a collection of converted civilian ships and desperate pilots. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. "Send a message to all human forces," he ordered. "Tell them we will stop the bombardment if they surrender now." The response came back in less than 5 minutes. It was not from General Chun this time, but from someone else entirely. A young human male in a pilot's suit, broadcasting from what looked like the cockpit of a small fighter. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," the pilot said. "I'm speaking for all the pilots out here. We received your offer to stop shooting at our empty cities if we surrender." The pilot's face was dirty and tired, but his eyes burned with the same determination Kethver had seen in General Chun. "Here's our counteroffer," Morrison continued. "You can leave our system right now, and we'll let half of your ships survive the trip home." The transmission ended. Captain Vilinux looked at Admiral Kethver in disbelief. Did a single human pilot just threaten our entire fleet? Before Kethver could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The tactical display showed something that should have been impossible. A group of human ships had somehow gotten behind the Zephyrian fleet without being detected. "How did they get past our sensors?" Vilinux demanded. "Unknown," the sensor officer replied. "They just appeared on our screens. It's like they were hiding in the shadow of their own planet." The human ships behind the fleet were different from the others. These looked like military vessels, sleek and fast. They moved in perfect formation, striking at the Zephyrian ships' engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. "They're targeting our weak points," the tactical officer reported. "They know exactly where to hit us for maximum damage." Admiral Kethver realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans were not just fighting desperately. They were learning from every battle, adapting their tactics, improving their weapons. Each wave of attackers was more effective than the last. "Admiral," Captain Vilinux said quietly, "maybe we should consider withdrawing to regroup." Kethver wanted to refuse. The Zephyrian Empire did not retreat from primitive worlds. But as he watched another of his destroyers explode under human fire, he began to understand that this was not a primitive world. This was something else entirely. "All ships," he ordered reluctantly. Pull back to long range. Maintain blockade. Positions but do not engage unless attacked. As the Zephyrian fleet withdrew, more human ships poured out of Earth's atmosphere. They did not pursue the retreating aliens. Instead, they took up defensive positions around their planet, waiting for the next attack. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Kethver stared at the tactical display. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost more ships than in his last. 10 conquests combined, and the humans showed no signs of giving up. For the first time in his long military career, Kethver began to wonder if the Zephyrian Empire had made a terrible mistake. The war was just beginning. Admiral Kethver thought the humans would stay near their planet after the first battle. That was what every other species had done when facing the Zephyrian Empire. They would defend their homeworld and wait for the next attack. The humans did something different. They hunted. The first sign of trouble came 3 days after the fleet had pulled back to blockade positions. Commander Zalthek was leading a supply convoy from the nearest Zephyrian base 2 star systems away. His ships carried food, ammunition, and replacement parts for the fleet around Earth. "Commander," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress signal from Transport 7. Zalthek looked at his tactical display. Transport 7 was at the back of the convoy, carrying medical supplies and spare weapon components. "What kind of distress signal?" "They report being under attack, sir." "Attack?" Zalthek turned his ship around to investigate. "Attack by what?" "There are no enemy forces in this system." When his ship reached Transport 7, he found wreckage floating in space. The transport had been completely destroyed, but the attacking ships were nowhere to be found. "Scan for enemy vessels," Zalthek ordered. "No contacts, Commander. Whoever did this is gone." Zalthek studied the wreckage patterns. The transport had been hit by energy weapons, but the damage looked different from standard Zephyrian weapons. The cuts were cleaner, more precise. Someone had taken their time to completely destroy the ship. "How is this possible?" the tactical officer asked. "The nearest human ships are 2 star systems away, blockaded around Earth." Commander Zalthek reported the attack to Admiral Kethver, who received the news with growing unease. Over the next week, more supply ships disappeared. Then a communication relay went silent. Then an automated mining station stopped responding to signals. "Send scouts to investigate," Kethver ordered. The scouts found the same thing every time. Complete destruction and no sign of the attackers. Whatever was hitting Zephyrian targets was fast, efficient, and impossible to track. Captain Velinox studied the reports with confusion. "Admiral, this doesn't make sense. Our fastest ships take 6 days to travel between here and our supply bases. How are humans getting there so quickly?" The answer came when Captain Rexstar was leading a patrol near the edge of the star system. His 3 ships were checking for human vessels trying to break through the blockade when something appeared on his sensors. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, his sensor officer reported. "Single ship, small size, moving at high speed." "Human?" Rexstar asked. "Unknown design, Captain." "It doesn't match any ship in our database," Rexstar ordered his ships to intercept. What they found was impossible. The unknown vessel looked like someone had taken pieces from a dozen different ships and welded them together. Part of the hull was clearly human in design, but other sections looked Zephyrian. Still, other parts seemed to come from species Rexstar didn't recognize. "It's a hybrid," his tactical officer said in amazement. "Someone combined human and Zephyrian technology." The strange ship moved unlike anything Rexstar had ever seen. It dodged his weapons fire with impossible agility, then suddenly accelerated to speeds that should have torn any ship apart. "Pursue and destroy," Rexstar ordered. His 3 ships chased the hybrid vessel for 2 hours. Every time they got close enough to fire, the strange ship would do something impossible. It would change direction without slowing down, or suddenly accelerate beyond what their sensors could track, or simply vanish from their screens only to reappear somewhere else. "Captain," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel." "Put it through." The screen showed a human face. The pilot was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and bright green eyes. She was smiling. "Hello there," the human said in accented but clear Zephyrian. "My name is Lieutenant Sarah Kim, Earth Defense Force. Thanks for the chase." "It was fun." Rexstar stared at her. "How did you learn our language?" "We're quick learners," Sarah replied. "We've also learned a lot about your technology. Your ships are pretty impressive, but they're not very creative. Too predictable. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to—" Sarah laughed, cutting him off. "Surrender? Captain, I think you misunderstand the situation. You're not chasing me. I'm leading you exactly where I want you to go." Rexstar felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "Look behind you." Rexstar checked his rear sensors and saw something that made his blood freeze. 3 more ships had appeared behind his formation. They looked just as strange as Sarah's vessel, cobbled together from different technologies. But their weapons were very real and very deadly. "How?" Rexstar began. "We learned a lot from your first attack on Earth," Sarah said, "including how to build ships that your sensors can't track properly. Want to see what else we learned?" The 4 human ships attacked Rexstar S patrol with devastating efficiency. They moved in perfect coordination, covering each other and striking at weak points in the Zephyrian vessels. Rexstar S ships were bigger and more heavily armed, but it didn't matter. The humans fought like a pack of hunters, taking down much larger prey. Within minutes, 2 of Rexstar S ships were destroyed. The third, his own command vessel, was badly damaged and losing power. "This is impossible," Rexstar whispered. Sarah's face appeared on his screen again. "Captain, I'm going to give you a choice. You can die here, or you can take a message back to your admiral." "What message?" "Tell him that Earth is not under siege anymore. We're free, and we're coming for him. Tell him that every day he stays, in our system we get stronger and he gets weaker. Tell him that we've learned how to build ships he can't catch and weapons he can't defend against." Sarah paused, and her smile grew colder. "And tell him that we know where all his bases are now. We've been watching, learning, mapping everything. His supply lines, his communication networks, his hidden outposts. We know it all." Rexstar S ship was pulled into the human formation. He expected to be destroyed, but instead, the humans just escorted him to the edge of the system and let him go. "Remember the message, Captain," Sarah said before cutting the transmission. Rexstar limped back to the main fleet with his damaged ship and his impossible story. Admiral Kethver listened to the report with growing dread. "They have ships we cannot track," Velenok said, summarizing the situation. "They are hitting our supply lines faster than we can defend them, and now they claim to know the locations of all our bases." As if to prove the point, another report came in. The main supply depot at Kepler Station had been destroyed. 300 Zephyrian personnel were missing, along with enough weapons and supplies to outfit a small fleet. "They're not just attacking randomly," Kethver realized. "They're stealing our technology and supplies to build more ships." Over the following weeks, the pattern became clear. Human ships would appear deep in Zephyrian space, destroy or capture whatever they wanted, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. They hit supply convoys, communication relays, isolated outposts, and research stations. Each attack was perfectly planned and executed with surgical precision. The humans weren't just defending their planet anymore. They were taking the war directly to the Zephyrian Empire. "Admiral," the intelligence officer reported during one morning briefing, "we've lost contact with 17 supply convoys, 8 communication stations, and 4 research outposts in the past month. Our supply lines are falling apart." "How many human ships are we dealing with?" Kethver asked. "Unknown, sir. They never use the same ship design twice. Our analysts think they're building new vessels constantly, using whatever materials they can capture from us." Captain Velenok pulled up a star chart showing Zephyrian space. Red marks indicated locations where attacks had occurred. There were dozens of them, scattered across 3 star systems. "They're everywhere," she said quietly. "How are they doing this?" "They should not have the technology for faster-than-light travel." The answer came from an unexpected source. A group of Zephyrian engineers who had been captured during one of the human raids was released at the edge of the system. They carried a message and something else. They sent back our people, the medical officer reported. All alive, all unharmed. But they've been studied. Studied how? The humans asked them questions, lots of questions, about our technology, our military organization, our supply routes. The engineers say the humans were very polite about it, but very thorough. Did our people tell them anything? They tried not to, but the humans already knew most of it. They've been observing our operations for weeks. They know more about our fleet movements than some of our own officers do. The message the released engineers carried was simple and direct. It was addressed to Admiral Kethver personally. Admiral, the recorded human voice said, "This is General Chun. By now you're beginning to understand that this is not the conquest you expected. We are not the helpless primitives you thought we were. We are adaptable, resourceful, and very angry. You have one chance to end this peacefully. Withdraw your fleet from our system and leave human space forever. Do this and we will let you. Go, stay, and we will hunt down every ship, every base, every outpost you have until nothing remains of your presence in this part of the galaxy. We are no longer defending, we are attacking. And we are very good at it." The war spread across 3 star systems like wildfire. What had started as a simple conquest of one primitive world had become a nightmare that threatened the entire Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Kethver stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at reports that grew worse each day. Red markers on the tactical display showed human attacks scattered across dozens of worlds. The humans were no longer just hitting supply convoys and outposts. They were attacking major Zephyrian colonies. "Report from Nexus Prime," Captain Valinux said, her voice strained. "The human fleet arrived 3 hours ago. The orbital defense platforms held them off for 20 minutes before being destroyed." "How many human ships?" Kethver asked. 47. Confirmed. "But Admiral, they're not the same makeshift vessels we've been seeing. These are proper warships. Someone has been building them a real fleet." Kethver studied the battle footage from Nexus Prime. The human ships moved with the same impossible agility he had seen before, but they were larger now, more heavily armed. Worse, they fought with perfect coordination, like they shared a single mind. Where are they getting the resources to build so many ships? He demanded. The answer came from Intelligence Officer Mordic, whose pale skin had grown even paler over the past months. "Admiral, we believe they are not just building new ships. They are converting our captured vessels. Every supply convoy they destroy, every outpost they overrun, they strip everything useful and take it back to their hidden shipyards." "Hidden shipyards?" "We have identified at least 12 locations where humans are constructing new vessels. Most are built inside asteroids or on the dark sides of moons. They move their construction facilities regularly, making them nearly impossible to target." Valinux pulled up another report. "It gets worse, Admiral. We're receiving reports from the Kepler colonies that local populations are beginning to rebel. They say the humans contacted them and offered to help them overthrow Zephyrian rule." This was something entirely new. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force. Their subject worlds stayed quiet because they knew resistance was hopeless. But now, for the first time, someone was proving that the Empire could be beaten. "How many worlds are in open rebellion?" Kethver asked. 17 confirmed, with more considering it every day, Mordic replied. "The humans are providing them with weapons and tactical support. They're teaching them how to fight." The humans were not just trying to defend their own world anymore. They were actively working to destroy the Zephyrian Empire from within. They had learned that the Empire's greatest weakness was not its military force, but the resentment of the billions of beings it had conquered. A communication alert interrupted their discussion. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Tertiary Defense Fleet. Put it through." The screen showed Admiral Vexton, commander of the fleet assigned to protect the Empire's industrial worlds. His usually perfect uniform was torn and dirty. Behind him, smoke filled the bridge of his ship. "Kethver," Vexton said urgently. "They hit all 3 factory worlds simultaneously. We never saw them coming." "What do you mean, all 3 worlds?" "The humans attacked Foundry Prime, Industrial Station 7, and the shipyards at Vega Colony at exactly the same time. 3 separate fleets, perfectly coordinated. They knew exactly where our defenses were weakest." Admiral Kethver felt ice forming in his veins. Those 3 worlds produced most of the Empire's military equipment. If they were damaged or destroyed, the entire war effort would collapse. "How much damage?" he asked. "Foundry Prime is completely destroyed. Industrial Station 7 is offline and burning. The Vega shipyards. They didn't just destroy them. Kethver, they captured them. The humans have our most advanced ship construction facilities." The transmission cut out as another explosion shook Vexton's ship. Captain Velinux stared at the blank screen. "They captured a shipyard?" "How is that possible?" Intelligence Officer Mordick had the answer. "Our analysts believe the humans have developed new tactics specifically for capturing rather than destroying key targets. They use some kind of gas that knocks out our personnel without killing them. Then they move in with boarding parties and take control of the facility." "But why would they want our shipyards?" "To build better ships, Captain. The humans are not just copying our technology anymore. They are improving it." As if to prove his point, another report arrived. This one came from a Zephyrian patrol that had encountered a new type of human vessel near the disputed Centauri system. "Admiral," the patrol leader reported via recorded message, "we encountered what appeared to be a single human ship. Standard protocol was to engage and destroy. But when we opened fire, the ship ... changed. The recording showed something that defied belief. The human vessel, which had looked like a normal cruiser, suddenly split apart into 6 smaller ships. Each smaller ship then attacked the Zephyrian patrol from a different direction. It was like fighting a ghost," the patrol leader continued. "Every time we targeted one ship, it would combine with another or split apart again. We could not get a lock on them. They destroyed 2 of my ships and captured the 3rd before I could retreat." Admiral Kethver watched the recording 3 times before he could accept what he was seeing. The humans were not just building ships that could outfight Zephyrian vessels. They were building ships that could think, adapt, and change during battle. "How long before they reached the core worlds?" he asked quietly. Mordick checked his calculations. "At their current rate of expansion, human forces will be within striking distance of the Empire's capital within 6 months. "And our reinforcements?" "The High Command has authorized the deployment of the 1st through 5th battle fleets," Captain Velinux reported. "But Admiral, those fleets are scattered across the Empire, maintaining order on 1,000 worlds. If we pull them back to fight the humans, we risk losing control of half our territory." Kethver realized the terrible truth. The humans had not just started a war with the Zephyrian Empire. They had started a revolution. Every world that had been conquered and held down for centuries was watching to see if the humans could really defeat their oppressors. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from Earth." "General Chen again?" "No, sir. The signal is coming from a human ship, but it's broadcasting from the edge of our defensive perimeter." Admiral Kethver felt his blood chill. A human ship had somehow penetrated the fleet's defensive screen without being detected. "Put the transmission through." The screen showed a human male in a military uniform Kethver had never seen before. The man was older, maybe 50 years old, with gray hair and calm blue eyes. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was filled with beings from dozens of different species, all working together. "Admiral Kethver," the human said. "I am Admiral David Chun, General Sarah Chun's brother. I command the 1st Human Liberation Fleet." "Liberation Fleet?" "We're here to liberate the people of this galaxy from Zephyrian tyranny," Admiral Chun explained calmly. "We've been busy these past few months. We've freed 17 worlds, captured 43 Zephyrian installations, and recruited volunteers from 36 different species. It turns out that when you give people hope, they're very eager to fight for their freedom. Admiral Kethver looked at the beings on the human ship's bridge. He recognized Altarians, Centaurans, vegan colonists, even some Zephyrians who had apparently joined the human cause. What do you want? Kethver asked. The same thing we've always wanted, Admiral Chun replied. For you to leave. The difference is that now we're not asking. We're telling you. Your empire is finished, Admiral. Your supply lines are cut. Your industrial capacity is destroyed. Half your subject worlds are in open rebellion. Your own people are beginning to desert to our cause. The Zephyrian Empire has endured for 3,000 years. We will not be defeated by primitives, Admiral Chun smiled sadly. Admiral, with respect, we stopped being primitives the moment we refused to surrender. We've learned everything you have to teach us, and we've improved on it. We build better ships now, we fight better battles, and most importantly, we fight for something you've forgotten, which is freedom, hope, the right to live without fear. Your empire rules through terror, but terror only works until someone stands up to it. Once that happens, the fear goes away, and all you have left is anger. Admiral Chun leaned forward in his chair. We are the anger of every world you've conquered, Admiral. We are the hope of every being you've oppressed. We are the future, and you are the past. The transmission ended. Admiral Kethver stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. Outside, the Zephyrian fleet maintained its positions. But everyone knew those positions were meaningless now. The humans were no longer trapped around Earth. They were everywhere, building ships, freeing worlds, and turning the galaxy against the empire that had once seemed invincible. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire was losing a war. The end came not with a great battle, but with silence. Admiral Kethver sat alone in his command center, watching status reports that told the story of an empire's collapse. Ship after ship was reporting surrender. Not destruction, not defeat. In battle, but simple surrender. His crews were giving up. Admiral, Captain Valinik said quietly, entering the command center. Her uniform was wrinkled and her face showed the exhaustion of months without sleep. The 4th Battle Fleet has surrendered to human forces near Rigel. How many ships? All of them, sir. 230 vessels. They didn't even fight. When the human fleet appeared, Admiral Korthak sent a message saying his crews refused to continue the war. Kethver nodded slowly. It was the same story everywhere. Zephyrian crews were abandoning their posts, refusing orders, or simply surrendering, rather than face human forces. The mighty military machine that had conquered hundreds of worlds was falling apart from within. What about the capital? He asked. The High Council evacuated 3 days ago, Valinik replied. They took the emergency fleet and fled to the outer colonies. They left orders for all remaining forces to negotiate local surrenders. The Zephyrian government had abandoned its own empire. The leaders who had commanded the conquest of countless worlds had run away when faced with real resistance. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a message from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral David Chun appeared on the screen. Behind him, Kethver could see the bridge of what had once been a Zephyrian dreadnought, now crewed by humans and aliens working together. Admiral Kethver, Chun said respectfully, I'm calling to offer you the same choice we've given every other Zephyrian commander. Surrender your remaining forces, and we guarantee safe passage to any world that will accept you. Continue fighting, and we will do whatever is necessary to protect the innocent people caught in this war. Kethver looked around his nearly empty bridge. Most of his officers had already left, either surrendering to human forces or simply disappearing into space. Only a handful remained, and they looked at him with tired, defeated eyes. What happened to us? He asked quietly. Admiral Chun's expression softened. You forgot that the people you conquered were still people. You thought fear was enough to keep them down forever. But fear only works until someone gives you hope. And you gave them hope. We showed them that the Empire could be beaten. After that, they did most of the work themselves. It was true. The final collapse of the Zephyrian Empire had not come from human military might alone. It had come from rebellions on 1,000 worlds, from subject species who had finally seen that freedom was possible. The Altarians had been the first to rise up, using weapons and tactics provided by human advisors. Then the Centaurans had joined them. The vegan colonies had declared independence. One by one, every world the Empire had conquered had broken free. "What will you do with us?" Kethver asked. "That depends on you," Admiral Chun replied. "The people of the galaxy want justice for 3,000 years of oppression, but they also want peace. Those who surrender and help rebuild the worlds they help destroy will be treated fairly. Those who continue to fight or try to restart the Empire?" Chun shrugged. "Well, that won't be allowed." Admiral Kethver made his decision. "All Zephyrian forces," he announced over the fleet communication system, "this is Admiral Kethver. I am ordering the immediate surrender of all ships and personnel to human authority. The war is over." One by one, the remaining Zephyrian vessels powered down their weapons and engines. The great fleet that had once darkened Earth's sky became a collection of defeated ships waiting for the victors to take control, but the humans did not gloat over their victory. They processed the surrenders quickly and efficiently, treating captured Zephyrian personnel with surprising kindness. Medical aid was provided to the wounded. Food and water were distributed to ships that had been running low on supplies. Admiral Chun came aboard the Eternal Dominion personally to accept Kethver's surrender. The human leader was polite but firm as he explained what would happen next. "You and your senior officers will be transported to Earth for war crimes tribunals," Chun said. "The process will be fair, but there will be accountability for what was done to innocent people. And the rest of my crews? Those who want to return to Zephyrian space will be allowed to do so. Those who want to start new lives elsewhere will be helped to find homes. Some have already asked to join reconstruction efforts on worlds damaged during the war." Kethver was surprised. "You would trust former enemies to help rebuild?" "Everyone deserves a chance at redemption," Chun replied. "The galaxy has seen enough destruction. It's time to build something better." Months passed. The war crimes tribunals were held on Earth, broadcast across the galaxy for all to see. The process was slow and careful, with evidence presented and witnesses heard. Some Zephyrian leaders were imprisoned for their crimes. Others, who had tried to minimize suffering or had helped in surrender negotiations, received lighter sentences. Admiral Kethver was sentenced to 20 years of supervised community service, helping to rebuild the worlds his fleets had damaged. It was, he reflected, far more merciful than what the Empire would have done to defeated enemies, but the real change was happening throughout the galaxy. The Human Liberation Fleet was not conquering the former Zephyrian worlds. Instead, they were helping them build new governments, establish trade relationships, and develop their own defense forces. "We didn't fight this war to build an empire," General Sarachun explained to a gathering of planetary representatives. "We fought it to make sure no one could build an empire like that again." The humans kept their word. They provided technology, teachers, and advisors to any world that wanted them, but they did not impose human rule. Each world was free to choose its own path. Within 5 years, a new galactic community had formed. It was not an empire ruled by fear, but a voluntary alliance based on mutual respect and shared defense. The humans played an important role, but they were not the rulers. The change could be seen in small things as well as large ones. Children on hundreds of worlds learned new stories about brave humans who had fought impossible odds to free the galaxy. Museums displayed artifacts from the war, reminding people of the cost of freedom, but perhaps the most telling change was in the language itself. The word Zephyrian had become something no parent wanted their children to be called. It meant cowardly, bullying, cruel. When a child was being mean to others, parents would ask, "Are you going to act like a Zephyrian?" The species that had once struck fear into the hearts of billions now inspired only contempt and pity. Their name had become a curse word used across the galaxy. Some Zephyrians tried to change their species name to escape the shame of what their empire had done. Others worked hard to rebuild their reputation through good deeds and peaceful cooperation. A few even joined human-led exploration missions, seeking new worlds to settle rather than conquer. Admiral Kethfer, now working as a construction supervisor, on a world his ships had once bombarded, often thought about how completely everything had changed. The mighty Zephyrian Empire existed only in history books now, remembered as a cautionary tale about the dangers of tyranny. He had learned to respect the humans during his years of supervised service. They were not the primitive savages he had once thought them to be. They were something far more dangerous to tyrants, and far more valuable to the innocent. They were people who simply refused to accept that might made right. The thing about humans, his human supervisor had told him once, is that we're stubborn. When someone tells us we can't do something, especially if that something is important, we tend to prove them wrong. The Zephyrian Empire had told humanity they could not resist conquest. Humanity had proven them wrong so thoroughly that the very name Zephyrion had become a symbol of failure. Years later, when new threats emerged in distant parts of the galaxy, the response was always the same. The free worlds would call for help, and human ships would answer. Not to conquer or rule, but to stand beside anyone who refused to kneel to tyranny. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from the war that started when the Zephyrians declared war on Earth. No empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against people who fought for their freedom and refused to give up. And everyone had learned what happened to those who threatened innocent worlds. Their names became curses, spoken only as warnings of what not to become. The legacy of Earth's defiance lived on, not in monuments or empires, but in the simple knowledge that freedom was always worth fighting for, and that bullies, no matter how strong they seemed, could always be beaten by those brave enough to stand up to them. The humans had kept their promise. They had come and taken what the Zephyrians offered. They had taken their empire, their reputation, and their place in history, and they had given the galaxy something far better in return. Hope.